Are you picking out a PC case but aren't sure what is the best for you? In this video I take a hands-on look, at a $250, actually it's back there, and some $60 to $100 PC cases to answer the big old question, which one is really worth it? Now, the first question you probably want to know is, what in the world does a $250 PC case get you besides an empty wallet and becoming well on your way to selling that second kidney of yours? That first kidney, of course, going to buy a brand new RTX graphics cards because that stuff is expensive. RGB quality and customability are all things that can shape your purchasing decisions, and in the end, the PC case is the main thing you see about your build. And that and the motherboard, so don't have a crappy motherboard either. Unless you are going for, of course, a sleeper build, and then having cheap crap parts may actually be appealing. Having expensive graphics cards and motherboards and processors, but a $30 case can raise some questions about the overall quality of your build. For example, what power supply did you buy with that extra money? Not to mention, PC cases are one of those few things that retain most of their value over a couple years. Heck, my PC case, these two PC cases went from what, $100 to like $650? Dude, PC cases are the investment. So when it comes time to sell your PC, it becomes a key factor in the resale value because people don't want to buy a trash can. No thank you. So for our video today, we will be comparing a couple cases in order to have an accurate comparison. And I figured we would compare a few examples of expensive PC cases all around here and a few choices of much cheaper options. Both are pretty decent cases. For our expensive case lineup, we have back here behind where you can't see, we have the darker, Be Quiet Dark Base Rev 2 Mouthful, and we have a Thermaltake View 71. Both currently come in right around, or should come in right around $250. Now, in reality, the Be Quiet one is like $650 on Amazon, and as I said, Be Quiet watches some of these videos, and no offense to y'all, but I'm not paying inflated prices on that case. Most of the cases that are inflated are not worth it. So for our cheaper options, we have the Montech, I think this is Mesh, and then we have a Be Quiet 500DX, also really decent cases as well. So what are some of the features expensive PC cases offer besides draining your wallet and causing you to lose organs? Well, for those of you that need to compensate for a lack of computing power, of course, you can choose to do so by getting a large case, just like some people choose to lift their trunk. Large cases mean you can fit more hardware inside, and for example, extended ATX motherboards require more space than your typical PC case. Maybe you need the extra space for cooling, like liquid cooling for example, or fitting all those graphics cards in that case. And those can generate a lot of heat, and having multiple areas in your case that can support radiators for ample liquid cooling is great. Expensive PC cases surprisingly do not come with RGB most of the time. I mean, you're paying $250 on a case, and that is my biggest gripe, is we cannot include just some RGB lights in there. Since they don't come with RGB, they hopefully spend that money on other features, and usually more expensive PC cases have more 3.5-inch drive bays. So if you're making a NAS server, you probably want to make sure that you get an expensive PC case. And for most of the time, if you're buying an expensive PC case, you're paying for a very unique look, which no other cases offer. Expensive PC cases offer more support for liquid cooling most of the time. And, well, the reason why is because they're kind of bigger and you paid more money for it, pretty much. So expensive PC cases are also more likely to come with higher quality materials. Now, I'm not going to say that this is a 60 and this is like 100, but honestly, there's a very slight difference between these two. Now, when you get to expensive PC cases, they tend to have a little bit more higher quality materials. The finish may be a little nicer, etc. Also, they may end up coming with more glass panels. These just have one glass panel on each side, or on one glass panel on a side. But for example, the larger cases we'll be looking at today have multiple glass panels, like 5 or 6. So also the glass may be a higher quality, so keep that in mind. Tempered glass versus regular glass versus acrylic. I don't know, acrylic's not glass, but still. More expensive PC cases also have more extras. What are extras, you may ask? Extras are things like depression, zip ties, or extra positioning after debating on how much money you really spent on this case. In practice, even with a large motherboard in a PC case that supports extended ATX motherboards, some cases don't do a good job of putting the holes in the right place. Thermal take. Sorry, I have a PC case that I have a rat's nest of cable management because they decided they were going to put the holes behind the extended ATX motherboard positioning. I have seen so much. Oh boy, that's not even proper grammar. I have seen so many cheaper cases do an amazing job of planning for cable management, and some that do really, really, really bad jobs. So if your life involves waking up every day and taking pictures of your PC to flex and share with as many people as possible, a decent case may actually somewhat be important just for the looks. And I'm also not saying you have to buy an expensive PC case to have a good looking build. That is one of the pros, however, of a cheaper case with less materials to put in a large case. The overall build can be smaller and cheaper than a huge full tower case. And also some of the more cheaper options even have some RGB lights that come with it, whereas the bigger cases tend to skip out. Sorry, I'm a little heated today. On the lighting for the fans. So they just assume since you are spending so much money and you're so rich that you can just spend a little bit more on like $400, no, more like $100 RGB fans. Which, don't ask me why those fans are so expensive either. I don't know, and it's depressing. Now, you likely want to know why our low-end cases are actually not really low-end, which is a good question, actually. So, for example, they're not $30, and they actually cost $60 and like $100, and that's our low-end. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to make inferences that, you know, if you're broke, that if you're paying for $30, but what I'm saying is, instead of spending $30 and getting your finger cut or sent to the hospital for tetanus or getting stitches, I definitely recommend at least staying above the $50 mark in most cases, unless you want to end up with serious issues. Also, some cases under that $50 mark, from personal experience, are poorly designed, and therefore the motherboard kind of takes contact in a couple places it shouldn't in the back and does a fry on the motherboard. So you're having a fun time trying to talk to the RMA service about how your motherboard got fried by just putting it in the case. And they ask serious questions about whether or not you know what you're doing. And for a computer engineer to be trying to explain that to somebody, I'm just going to move on. So for this video, I wanted a valid comparison, not a health risk. Please stay away from below $50, just from personal experiences. Now, enough about my experiences. Let's show you a couple differences and the contestants we will be discussing today. So I own 2 high-end PC cases and 2 lower-end PC cases, at least right here, and that's what we'll be showing in this video. So each will discuss what the features are and, you know, why you should buy it, if you should buy it, and what situations you should. And then finally, at the end, we can discuss if more expensive is actually worth it. So this is the Montech Mesh. It's a pretty solid case. The only complaints I have is that the IO slots, or the expansion slots, only you pop them out and you can't really get them back in. But besides that, everything else is good. It comes with 2 fans. It's not going to be anything RGB or anything, but it is a pretty solid overall case whatsoever. And for, I think this is $60, $70, it is a substantially solid quality case that will not cause you any problems if you really need to get something that's just a case. It's got mesh, it's got 360 rad support on the front, and it's really, as I said, overall really solid quality. The only issue though is going to be that IO stuff. Now the next case that we have here today is I believe this is the Be Quiet 500DX. It's a pretty solid case as well. Couple things to point out that I like about this one is obviously it comes with 3 of Be Quiet's fans, not just 2 as I think the 500 did. The other thing was too, there's RGB strips on the front. These are actually addressable, so they actually look really cool. I really do wish that Be Quiet would do a little bit more RGB. Just make it kind of subtle like this, where you can turn it off if you don't like it. But then again, you have it for most people, and since RGB is kind of becoming really popular, definitely something to keep in mind. Obviously with this, all the expansion slots pop out, you can put them back in without any issue. You've got really, really nice build quality whatsoever. Everything is nice and sturdy, as well as having the sound dampening panels on the back. So when you pop off the back, you also have sound dampening on the back as well. So Be Quiet does, in my personal experience, since I've gotten both of those cases for free, Be Quiet definitely does seem to have the higher quality, but then again, it's also kind of more expensive. The only difference I would say is if you really were looking at just from a practical aspect of what would be the best between this and the mesh, they're both really both serve as cases. There's nothing that's really ruining the practicality of either. These both do solid jobs. So yeah, this is a PC case here. This is the notorious Thermaltake View 71. And just to really show you how bad of positioning they decided to put these holes in, I have all the cables running through the front fan location. So everything in here looks like a rat's nest. Which is really sad because these are actually nice parts. So, point of the story is, more expensive PC case does not necessarily mean more expensive hole positioning. The reason why this case is expensive, it's got 4 separate glass panels, and each of which are tempered glass and I think like almost half a mil, if not 3/4 of a mil thick. So I seriously don't know how I feel about it. And the only reason why this is probably worth so much, or the reason why it's so expensive, is because it had the side mounted graphics card, which it doesn't even come with a PCIe riser for. So it's so upsetting, the fact that they don't even bother with including some of the parts in here. You get 2 okay blue fans if you don't get the RGB version, and it's like $50 more, at least the time I bought this, to get the RGB fans. So it's really, really not worth it. So this is the 5th time that I've recorded this, and I've had enough with my camera messing up. So my camera does it. You get the concrete out there, out the window. So this is the Be Quiet Dark Rock Bass Rev 789. I don't know. For a couple things, is the one that allows you to switch around the whole orientation of the case. It's actually surprisingly pretty decent. No issues with the overall quality. Everything's nice. Everything's sound padded. You've got room for all kinds of radiators, liquid cooling, reorganization, all that stuff. Only issues was the RGB lights that came with it. Pretty much you just stick them to something and they fall right off. It's expensive, and really expensive. So don't waste your money on this kind of case, because I think this was $250, and even in the review of it, I really couldn't justify the $250 for a case. There are definitely other cases out there, but for the most part, it doesn't. I mean, it's definitely a workstation case. Like if you need the space and you need the room and you need the support for all that, then by all means go through and grab the case and use it. But it's not really justifiable, except for like the top 1% of people that are a group of 1% of people that are workstation users. And even myself as a workstation user couldn't justify it in my main case. Now, why do I have crap parts in here? Well, that's just because this is a testing computer, and that's what I do all my testing on, especially when we get all these crap stuff from eBay and Wish. Gotta test it somewhere. So are stupidly expensive, not really stupidly, but are expensive PC cases worth it? Well, depends. And for most people, the answer is actually no, they're not worth it. And I'll explain why it depends for some people. Some people really do need the, I don't know, I can kind of talk from experience. For the workstation tasks that I do need the space, you do need the room for the liquid cooling, you do need the room for the graphics card, and you do need the room for extended ATX motherboards that you normally wouldn't be able to fit in a mid-tower case. Now, for people that just have a regular ATX motherboard, the mid-tower case, you can get the 360 rads now. You can only fit one, but with the larger cases, you can fit more. So if you're going for a mid-range motherboard, an ATX motherboard with a liquid cooling setup, with your cooling the graphics card and the CPU, and you need those 2 360mm rads, you probably want to go through and get a large case. If you're just getting like a regular AIO 360, you can still get that in an ATX case or a mid-tower case, and you'll be fine. So point of the story is, most people, you'll be fine with cheaper cases, mid-tower cases, $100 cases, $60 cases, all that will be fine. You can get what you want, get nice looking cases. There are some really nice looking cases like that. And then for the much higher end stuff is only going to apply if you really need liquid cooling, need the room, or need the features, which is drive bays, etc. Or you want to get side mounted graphics cards. So that being said, thank you very much for watching this video. Check out the other ones coming up soon. Got a couple hopefully in this series, and we'll be comparing more expensive things coming up.